The forecast called for a powerful red wave, and while that wave may have been more of a ripple in some states, what we did see was a surge of GOP conquest that swept Florida. Both Governor Ron DeSantis and Senator Marco Rubio beat their opponents by historic margins, both in part owing victories to a sudden swing in the Hispanic vote, as well as a large-scale migration of voters from other states to Florida. Voters also praised DeSantis for his response to Hurricane Ian, as well as his leadership throughout the pandemic. And joining us tonight to discuss is author and syndicated columnist Cal Thomas. Cal, great to be with you tonight. Before we get to Florida, I want to get your take on the midterms overall.
Well, I think there's a problem with the way we conduct elections, Tracy, and Ken Cuccinelli touched on it. We don't have a universal way of vote counting. Here in Florida, where I am, as you alluded to a moment ago, results were known by 8 or 9 o'clock Eastern time at night. They have a system here in Florida which is called Find My Ballot. You can, it's an app, and you can go online and it traces your ballot from the moment you cast it to when the ballot is opened to when it is counted. It's an extremely efficient system. We've come a long way in Florida from the hanging chads of the year 2000 and Bush and Gore. I think nationally, the problem for Republicans especially is that they did not realize the impact that these early mail-in ballots had on the election outcome. A lot of these states allowed people 3, 4, 5 weeks in advance of Election Day to vote. This was before debates. It was certainly before the Fetterman-Oz debate in Pennsylvania, and minds can change in that period of time. And if they do, it's too bad because you've already cast your vote. This needs to be regularized as well. All this stuff that was influenced because of COVID needs to be done away with now that COVID is gone. You ought to show up on Election Day or have a legitimate reason for voting absentee. That's the way it's been for years. And I don't think the Republicans gauged that adequately. They thought their people would show up in overwhelming numbers at the polls on November 8th. They did not in overwhelming numbers, and that's why the Democrats won in a lot of places where they shouldn't have. Now, there's still some 40-some House seats to be decided, and as you mentioned earlier, 3 Senate seats, but I think it's all going to boil down to Georgia on December 6th.
Yeah, we shall see what happens there. I want to talk now about this voter migration pattern that we're seeing, especially to more conservative-leaning states like Florida, where you live. What is your take on this, and how do you think it's impacted elections, in particular this election?
Well, it certainly has helped Florida a lot. I mean, Florida was a blue state for a long time. Then it became kind of a purple swing state. And now, even according to liberal commentators, it resembles more a red state, a Republican state. I think Democrats may have miscalculated on this. They thought an open border, bringing in more Hispanics and Latinos, would convert to votes for them. That's not turning out the way they thought it would be. I mean, a lot of these Latinos and Hispanics are strong people of faith, many Roman Catholic. They are conservative, family values, all the things the Democrat Party does not promote. So I think this may be a bad bargain for them. The amazing thing, Tracy, is that Republicans blew this election. They had everything on their side. 75% of the public believes the country's headed in the wrong direction. They don't like the open border. Large numbers of pro-lifers, but not sufficient. Inflation, gas prices, food prices, mortgage rates, all of these things were in effect for the Republicans to take advantage of, and they didn't. And while I believe they're going to have a slim majority in the House, and we'll have a new speaker, thankfully, it's going to be very close in the Senate, and it could be another tie, and Kamala Harris may still rule from the chair. But Republicans have to take another look at this, and they also need to look at 2024. The New York Post today, which is about as conservative a newspaper as you can get, is completely anti-Trump and wants him not to run in 2024. Ron DeSantis and these younger Republicans, the torch needs to be passed to a new generation, as John F. Kennedy said in his inaugural address. We don't need a rerun of the past, and I hope that's what happens. DeSantis has a great record of success. He's a tremendous family man. He's pro-life. He is a man of great faith, and I think he's the wave of the immediate future for the Republicans.
Well, Cal, unfortunately, we are out of time, but thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thanks for asking me, Tracy.